A police K-9 made headlines after refusing to let a pilot board his own plane, sparking delays, panic, and complete outrage from passengers. But when airport security finally checked under the cockpit seat, what they discovered made everyone run for their lives. Face screaming in fear, you won't believe this one. Here's exactly what happened, but before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, leave a comment down below and tell us where in the world you're tuning in from. Glow showing Americas, and if you love wild, unbelievable police dog stories like this one, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Trust me, what's coming next? You won't want to miss it. It was another icy, bone-chilling morning at O'Hare International Airport. The fluorescent lights above flickered and cast a cold, pale glow across Terminal 3. Officer Michael Reeves gave a slight tug to his thick winter patrol jacket, the cold air biting at him every time the automatic doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. You could see his breath in little clouds as the freezing January wind snuck into the terminal. Snowflake. Beside him walked Titan, his fiercely loyal German Shepherd partner of nearly 3 years. Titan moved with military precision, not a paw out of place, his deep brown eyes scanning the crowd like a seasoned detective. The connection between them? Unshakable. This wasn't just a dog, this was a partner. The terminal buzzed with energy. The morning rush was at full throttle. Passengers darted through crowds, clutching boarding passes and dragging luggage behind them like lifelines. A snowstorm had slammed into Chicago overnight, throwing everything into chaos. People were stressed, snapping at flight times on the screen, clutching hot coffee for dear life, and trying not to miss yet another delay. Just another day in paradise, huh boy? Reeves murmured, reaching down to scratch Titan's ear. The big shepherd leaned into the affection for half a second, then snapped right back to business. That was Titan, always professional. So sharp, in fact, that his colleagues at the airport had jokingly started calling him the professor. Not because he wore glasses, but because he seemed to analyze everything before acting. Titan never barked without a good reason, and in this line of work, that mattered. The two continued their sweep of the international terminal, gliding through the sea of travelers like synchronized swimmers. Titan weaved expertly through roller bags and bustling families, checking every scent, every sound, every vibe. Every now and then, he'd glance up at Reeves, silently confirming they were still on the same wavelength. No commands needed, they just knew. Everything was normal until it suddenly wasn't. As they passed the sleek, glassy doors of the premium airline lounges, Titan froze. His body language changed in an instant. Reeves felt it before he saw it. Titan's ears snapped forward, his muscles went rigid, and his entire focus zeroed in on a single man. A pilot. Captain James Harrington. According to the clearly displayed ID badge clipped to his crisp, pressed uniform. He was striding confidently through the crew-only lane, his flight bag slung casually over one shoulder. Looked like any other experienced pilot.
Calm.
Collected. Maybe a little stressed. But nothing out of place. Except Titan didn't agree. The shepherd's low growl came from deep in his chest, turning heads. Within seconds, that growl escalated into fierce, targeted barking. And not the kind of bark that said, "I'm bored," or "Hey, play with me." This was a warning. A demand. Titan, heel. Reeves ordered, confused and trying to keep the situation calm. But for the first time in 3 years, Titan didn't listen.
Flushed face.
He lunged forward, not to attack, but to physically block the pilot's path. He positioned himself right in front of Harrington, barking like his life depended on it. The entire terminal seemed to freeze for a moment as heads turned, eyes widened, and whispers began to ripple through the crowd. What's going on? Why is that dog freaking out? Is he attacking the pilot? Captain Harrington looked flustered, then angry. "Control your dog, officer," he snapped, trying to keep his composure as cameras and phones started coming out. "I've got a transatlantic flight departing in 40 minutes. This is completely unacceptable." Reeves tightened his grip on Titan's leash, trying to keep the shepherd steady. "With all due respect, Captain," he replied evenly, "my partner doesn't act like this unless there's a real reason. He's never been wrong before." Harrington scoffed, visibly annoyed. "I've been flying for 15 years. This is harassment, not security." His voice rose slightly as more passengers gathered to watch. Just then, Airport Security Supervisor Diane Coleman arrived, her face unreadable but clearly concerned. "What's the situation, Officer Reeves?" she asked in a low voice, trying not to escalate the already growing crowd. "Titan's alerting, hard. And specifically to the captain here," Reeves explained, keeping his voice low. "I've never seen him react this strongly to flight crew. Ever." "This is absurd," Harrington snapped. "Flight 8862 is already delayed from the storm. There are over 200 passengers waiting for me to board. I don't have time for this circus." Coleman looked between Titan, still growling, unblinking, and the increasingly agitated pilot. "Officer Reeves, we can't ground an entire flight just because your dog's having a bad day," she said carefully, though her tone wasn't dismissive. Reeves felt a weight settle in his chest. He'd learned long ago to trust Titan's instincts. He remembered the time Titan sniffed out a weapon hidden in a prosthetic leg, and another when he caught a smuggler who'd surgically implanted drugs inside his own body. Titan had never been wrong. "I'm requesting a secondary screening," Reeves said, his tone firm now. "Protocol allows it, even for pilots." "This isn't random. This is profiling," Harrington shouted. "I'm calling airline operations." But just as he pulled out his phone, Reeves saw something that sent chills down his spine. Harrington's hand was shaking. Barely but definitely. And the look in his eyes? Panic. Not frustration. Not inconvenience. But something deeper.
Fear. Coleman saw it too.
"Captain, please come with us. It'll be quick. Discreet. But it's necessary." Harrington hesitated, then sighed loudly.
"Fine.
"But I will be reporting this." As they escorted him away, Titan's body relaxed slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the captain's every move. Reeves leaned in, whispered, "Good boy. I trust you." As they passed a digital screen, Reeves noticed the updated departure board. Flight 862 to London Heathrow, delayed. He just hoped that by trusting Titan, he hadn't just risked his career, but instead had prevented something far, far worse. Inside the cold, fluorescent-lit screening room, Officer Marcus Wong methodically went over Captain Harrington's documents, flipping through credentials with a meticulous eye. He tapped a few keys into the system before glancing up from the screen. "Everything seems to be in order," Wong finally said, comparing Harrington's pilot's license and ID to the internal security database. "Captain James Harrington, 15 years with American Airlines. All certifications current. No flags. Nothing suspicious on record." Harrington sat stiffly across from him, arms crossed over his chest, his jaw clenched. "Like I said, can I get back to my plane now? My flight plan's filed. I've got fuel burning on the tarmac and a crew waiting." His voice was calm, a little forced, but beneath it was a tension that hung in the air like static. Reeves stood off to the side, silently observing. His eyes weren't on the documents, they were on Titan. The shepherd hadn't so much as blinked. His entire focus was locked on Harrington.
Still.
Quiet. Alert. Watching every twitch, every breath. Wong began to unzip Harrington's flight bag, removing its contents with the calm professionalism of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Out came the usual stuff: a flight manual, folded NAV charts, a pair of reading glasses, spare epaulets, an energy bar, and a toiletry kit travel-sized and TSA approved. Wong turned each item over, checked each pocket, but nothing out of place. Nothing suspicious. "Sir, would you mind removing your jacket?" Wong asked politely, not breaking his steady rhythm. Harrington sighed audibly and stood, slipping off his uniform jacket with clear irritation. "This is beyond protocol, even for a random screening," he said, dropping the jacket onto the table with a thud. Wong didn't argue. He began checking each pocket, each seam, methodical and calm. Reeves, meanwhile, kept glancing between Titan and the pilot. The dog's body remained rigid, but his eyes were like lasers, fixed, tracking, waiting. Just then, Supervisor Coleman returned from a hallway, her radio still in hand. I've checked with operations, she said. They're moving a backup pilot into standby, but they need a decision within the next 15 minutes. We either clear Harrington now, or delay the flight again. Pressure. It was building like steam in a sealed kettle. Reeves felt the first tiny prickle of doubt. There was still no physical evidence. No weapons. No contraband. Just a dog's instinct. Even if it was Titan's. And that wasn't easy to ignore. Harrington leaned forward slightly, his tone softening. Look, I get it. You're just doing your job.
Maybe.
I don't know, maybe your dog picked up something on me. I gave my cat her meds this morning. That stuff always makes my clothes smell weird. The explanation sounded reasonable enough. Animal medications sometimes shared compounds with banned substances. It wasn't unheard of for K9 units to react to that. Reeves hesitated. It could be a coincidence, right? Wong wrapped up his inspection and shook his head. Nothing here. All items are clean. Coleman visibly exhaled, some tension releasing from her shoulders.
All right.
I think we can clear Captain Har.
Bark.
Titan exploded into a sharp, single bark that shattered the room's fragile calm. He shot to his feet, hackles up, body tense. But this wasn't persistence. Reeves knew that bark. That was escalation. Reeves stepped forward. Sir, I'm going to need you to empty your pants pockets. Harrington's mouth opened, just a sliver of resistance in his expression. A flicker, barely a second. But Reeves caught it. A tiny pause, almost imperceptible. Fine, Harrington muttered, clearly annoyed now. He reached into his pockets and pulled out a slim wallet, a set of keys, his phone, and some loose change, placing them on the table one by one. No problem here, he added, shrugging. Wong moved in, examining each item carefully. The phone drew his attention. He turned it over, inspected every side. Standard iPhone. No unusual mods. Nothing hidden, he said after a moment. Harrington reached forward, extending a hand toward his things. But Reeves wasn't looking at the table. He was watching him.
There.
A bead of sweat, running slowly down the side of Harrington's wrist. The room wasn't hot. In fact, it was cold enough that Wong still hadn't taken off his gloves. And Harrington? He was starting to breathe a little faster. Shallow. Controlled. But faster. Actually, Reeves said slowly, I'd like to request a full-body scanner and an ION swab. Harrington's entire posture shifted. That's not standard procedure for flight crew, he protested, visibly taken aback. It is, Coleman said, stepping in, when there's reasonable suspicion. And right now, I'd say that bar's been met. I need to call my union representative, Harrington snapped, his voice rising slightly now. You can, but your phone will need to stay here during screening, Wong said firmly, stepping forward. That was the moment the atmosphere in the room shifted entirely. This wasn't just a tense screening anymore. This was starting to feel like the edge of something far more dangerous. As Wong and Coleman moved to escort the pilot to the advanced screening chamber, Titan's head snapped toward the table, toward the jacket. His nose lifted. His ears angled forward. And then he pulled. The shepherd surged forward, locked onto the uniform jacket still resting on the table. He's signaling again, Reeves said quickly. He's focused on something in that jacket. Something specific. Coleman nodded. Let him work. Titan sniffed along the garment with calm, practiced precision. Then he froze. At the collar. He nudged at the left lapel. Once.
Twice.
Then gently began pawing at it with a soft but urgent motion. Reeves moved in. I think he's found something. Harrington shifted in place. This is absurd. That's just my standard issue jacket. Thousands of us wear the same one. But Reeves wasn't listening to him. He remembered a case, not long ago, where a smuggler had hidden contraband in the seams of a winter coat. You couldn't see it. You couldn't feel it. Not unless you knew exactly where to look. I want a closer look, Reeves said. He picked up the jacket and ran his fingers along the collar, following the stitching down toward the lapel, right where Titan had indicated. The seam was tight.
Smooth.
But something about the left side stitching. It just didn't feel right.